Hello and welcome to Report World News. My name is Barnona Zarzoda. President Shavkat Mirziyoyev on Saturday attended a festive event to hail women's role in the fight against the pandemic, as well as in educating children. The fair saw some Uzbekistan's Zulfiya Award winners as well as Motabar Ayol nominees.
Nowadays, women make up 45% of Uzbekistan's employed population and hold 33% of manager-level positions. Some 1,500 women occupy leadership positions. Uzbekistan's foreign personnel reserve is now consisting of more than 6,000 active women. According to a recent decree signed by President Mirziyoyev, over $20 million are to be allocated to help low-income women and girls raised by single mothers with housing. Some $20.1 million will be allotted to get the homeless into social housing. Additional measures will be taken to ensure that needy women receive medical treatment, vocational training, and financial assistance. On the same day, President Mirziyoyev paid a visit to the Republican boarding house for war and labor veterans to inspect the living conditions and treatment of the veterans. Some 138 elderly people are now residing in the complex under the state care program. The president instructed to erect a new building that would be used to hold cultural events as well as to allocate 3 hectares of land for park area adjacent to the boarding house.
The Turkish delegation led by Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu arrived in Samarkand on March 7 to attend the opening of the Consulate General of the Republic of Turkey. The opening ceremony also saw Deputy Prime Minister of Uzbekistan Aziz Abduhakimov, Foreign Minister of Uzbekistan Abdulaziz Kamilov, and Mayor of Samarkand region Erkinjon Turdimov. According to the country's tourism committee, the delegates also visited Uzbekistan's famous cities as Khiva and Bukhara. The guests enjoyed cultural events in the Chankala complex in Khiva, an open-air museum city, and a theatrical performance of Khwarezm Regional Puppet Theatre. After that, the delegation visited Bukhara. The guests visited a number of attractions such as the Poye Kalon complex, the Mir Arab Madrasa, and the Labi Havuz complex. They met with the local craftsmen and got acquainted with their national products.
Foreign ministers of Uzbekistan and Turkey met in Tashkent on March 9. Abdulaziz Kamilov and Mevlut Çavuşoğlu discussed the development of bilateral relations in the political, trade and economic, transport and communication, investment, tourism, cultural and humanitarian and other spheres. Preparations for the upcoming joint events, in particular the second meeting of the Uzbek-Turkish High-Level Strategic Cooperation Council, was on agenda. The first meeting of the council was held in February 2020 in Ankara. The foreign ministers exchanged views on strengthening the interparliamentary dialogue, improving the legal framework of bilateral relations and increasing inter-regional cooperation. The sides expressed mutual interest in enhancing cooperation within the framework of the UN, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the Cooperation Council of Turkic-speaking states, the Economic Cooperation Organization, and other multilateral structures. Attention was also paid to the expansion of partnership in the scientific and educational sphere, including the opening of a branch of the University of Bakhçisehir in Uzbekistan, as well as the establishment of the Fergana Higher School of Tourism together with the Hoja Bayram Vali University. The Turkish side was invited to the high-level international conference, Central and South Asia Regional Connectivity, Challenges and Opportunities, International Festivals, Shark Taronaları, Art of Bakhshi, Artisans and other events to be held in Uzbekistan. Following the meeting, the foreign ministers signed a program of cooperation between the Ministers of Foreign Affairs of Uzbekistan and Turkey for 2022-2023 and a memorandum of understanding in the field of translation services.
Uzbekistan has achieved substantial progress in expanding opportunities for its more than 17 million women and girls, but additional policy measures are needed to further advance and protect their rights and interests. The COVID-19 pandemic has added a new layer of challenges for the health, physical safety and economic security of women across the country, the World Bank said in its recent article published on its website.
By early 2020, it was clear that COVID-19 was more than a public health emergency. The outbreak quickly caused deep social and economic wounds around the globe. Even in the early stages, there were many concerns that the pandemic would affect men and women differently and disproportionately. The findings reveal that existing gender inequalities in Uzbekistan make women especially vulnerable to negative economic shocks such as COVID-19. The loss of income from employment, remittances, and other sources, as well as increased domestic care responsibilities and risks of domestic violence, have worsened living and health conditions of women from low-income households in urban and rural areas alike. Data on employment across the country shows gender gaps are especially evident. Women were already much less likely than men to work for pay. Women represented only 34% of those engaged in full-time work in urban areas, and a much lower in rural areas, 28%. Marital status and childcare responsibilities also affect women's labor force participation. Married women have a much lower likelihood of working than single women, 36% compared to 52%. COVID-19 has negatively affected sectors where the share of female employment is high. Namely, women are overrepresented in informal, seasonal, and part-time jobs that were hit hard by the crisis in Uzbekistan. According to the World Bank, promising reforms underway in the country depend on the systemic and systematic implementation by the central government and regional authorities to address the constraints to women's empowerment. Other follow-up actions could include launching awareness-raising campaigns about the state programs and projects on social and economic support for women, to provide them with information on eligibility criteria and how to participate. As Uzbekistan responds to the most serious economic crisis since gaining its independence in 1991, the country should view equality between men and women as the foundation of a stronger post-COVID society, creating equal conditions and opportunities for all citizens, regardless of their gender, the organization concludes.
Muruntau, located in Uzbekistan's Navoy region, has been affirmed as the world's biggest mine according to a rating compiled by the Kitco Analytical Center. When compiling the list, experts used official data from companies and rough estimates of mines that keep their data confidential.
The Muruntau mining complex, located in Uzbekistan and consisting of open-pit mine and heap leach operations, is estimated to have produced slightly more than 2 million ounces of gold in 2020. Operated by state-owned Navoy company, the mine is more than 3.3 kilometers long and 2.5 kilometers wide, nearly 600 meters deep. Considering the stunning resource base estimated in excess of 150 million ounces, Muruntau will likely keep its title as the world's biggest gold mine in the nearest future, the ranking says. The top 10 also includes Carling Mine in the US, Olimpiada of Russia, Pueblo Viejo in the Dominican Republic, and Grosberg in Indonesia.
Uzbekistan plans to launch the production of electric vehicles by 2025. Representative of UzAuto Motors, Rustam Kadyrov, told journalists during a press tour to the plant last week. In December last year, the Uzbek government announced its intention to produce electric vehicles. UzAuto Motors was instructed to involve foreign experts and consulting companies in this process and draw up a draft concept by February the 1st of this year.
Currently, we're only working on creating the concept. According to our forecast, production can be launched by 2025, said Kadyrov. Some 100 million cars are sold annually in the world, with the share of electric cars currently staying at 2%. Tesla is one of the most popular and demanded electric cars. Its price is around $35,000 US. In Uzbekistan, it costs more than twice of its amount. However, there are quite a few people in Uzbekistan who would buy a car for $35,000 US. 80% of our sales are cars cheaper than $11,000 US, he added. According to UzAuto Motors, the creation of the necessary infrastructure for charging them should be the primary task. General Motors in February announced its intention to make 40% of its cars completely electric by the end of 2025. It plans to exclusively offer electric vehicles by 2035. Uzbekistan imported $2.9 million US worth 131 electric cars in 2020, according to the country's State Statistics Committee. Most of them were imported from China and South Korea. The import of electric vehicles enjoys zero excise taxes and customs duties, while for traditional cars, consumers should pay twice its price.
People with HIV infection or autoimmune diseases, pregnant and nursing mothers, people under 18 years are not recommended for vaccination against coronavirus infection. The press service of the Minister of Health cited Vice Chief of Sanitary and Epidemiological Well-being and Public Health Service Normand Atabekov as saying, Citizens in close contact with people infected with coronavirus infection will be vaccinated after 14-day quarantine and medical examination. After receiving shots, people will remain under medical observation for 30 minutes. The vaccinated citizens will regularly visit a doctor. Mass vaccination of the first registered Chinese recombinant vaccine, ZF-UZ-VAC2001, is expected to begin in March. Some countries should have listened more carefully when the World Health Organization declared a global health emergency in January 2020, Mike Ryan, the WHO's top emergency expert, said on Monday. Mr. Ryan also said that the organization would not recommend the use of vaccine certificates as a requirement for travels, as access to vaccines was still limited and not equitable worldwide.
The fact that countries, I can fully understand maybe from a media perspective that a member of the public and others might not necessarily react to the declaration of a global public health emergency under the IHR by the Director General. But that is an agreement between all member states on this planet who agreed in law that this would represent the trigger to collective action in response for containment. So I think we have to ask ourselves, yes, maybe we need to shout louder, but maybe some people need hearing aids.
After months of remote learning, millions of English children and teenagers returned to school on Monday. The reopening of schools is the first step in a 4-stage government plan to ease the lockdown while trying to prevent a new surge in infections. New safety measures for pupils include regular hand washing, staggered arrival times, and social bubbles. For secondary schools, the requirements are more onerous, with teenagers being mass tested for COVID and required to wear masks in the classroom. The near consensus has been that getting children back to school is essential for their mental health, education, and life chances. Most pupils had missed out on more than 3 months of school in the spring and early summer of 2020, when Britain was under its first strict national lockdown. James Fisher is the head of Harris Academy in Sutton, England.
I think I'm seeing a lot of thrilled children, really grateful to be back in school, really thrilled to be getting back on with their learning, but we're prepared for any of the inconsistencies that might be thrown up in terms of their behaviour. We're prepared for that as well.
Things have also opened up for England's care home residents, who are now allowed one regular visitor. Nikki Clough was one of the first family members allowed back to the Alexander House home in Wimbledon, South London.
Right, I'm going to leave you guys to it.
She had not been able to visit her mother, 87-year-old Pam Harrison, at the home since March 2020. Aside from a couple of meetings when Harrison had been admitted to hospital, all of Clough's interactions with her mother had been through the ground floor window. Now, the only barrier to connection is the comprehensive protective gear Clough has to wear. For adults in England, the lockdown remains in force, with social contact severely restricted. People are under stay-at-home orders, most shops are closed, and cafes and restaurants are only able to offer takeaway or delivery. The remaining 3 steps of the government's plan to ease the lockdown are due to kick in April, May and June, subject to a continued reduction of coronavirus infections. Since the start of the pandemic, Britain has recorded 124,500 deaths from COVID-19, the 5th highest official death toll in the world and the worst in Europe.
Not only was I not being protected, but that they were willing to lie to protect other members of the family.
The Prince Harry and Meghan sit-down tell-all interview with Oprah Winfrey, which aired Sunday on the American CBS TV network, turned out to be a ratings blockbuster. Some 17.1 million Americans watched the bombshell 2-hour interview, the broadcaster said on Monday, making it the biggest audience for any entertainment special since last year's Academy Awards. The news sent shares of parent company Viacom CBS to an all-time high. In the first public interview since Prince Harry and his wife stepped back from the British royal family a year ago, there were accusations of racism towards Meghan, a former American actress who is of mixed race, and claims Buckingham Palace failed to protect the couple from attacks in the UK press. The situation had become so intense, a teary-eyed Meghan confessed to Winfrey that it drove her to suicidal thoughts.
I just didn't want to be alive anymore.
The no-holds-barred discussion of the royals also revealed a rift between Harry, his father Prince Charles, and his brother Prince William. The interview set off a media frenzy in the British press and across social media. The hashtag Harry and Meghan on Oprah was among the top 5 trending topics worldwide on Twitter during and after the broadcast. And the craze is not likely to die down as the full interview is aired in Britain Monday night. Buckingham Palace has yet to release an official statement.
Despite multiple scientific studies saying the COVID-19 vaccine manufactured by AstraZeneca is safe and effective, some residents in Europe are turning down that particular shot. They include 60-year-old Nadine Roger, who lives in Paris. She's recovering from breast cancer and is in the high-risk category. She told Reuters, quote, "The AstraZeneca shot frightens me," and said she's prepared to wait for an alternative dose despite wanting to get vaccinated as soon as possible.
The AstraZeneca vaccine requires 2 doses spaced 3 months apart. 3 months is a very long time, especially after a year of being deprived from going out. So the vaccine is not yet proven against variants. There's too little data on variants.
According to the most recent data made available by the French Health Ministry for the end of February, France was only using about a quarter of its AstraZeneca doses, compared with 82% for vaccines made by Pfizer-BioNTech and 37% for the Moderna shot. Partly due to logistical bottlenecks, but also because some French people don't trust the AstraZeneca shot because of concerns over side effects. European regulators have concluded the side effects caused by the AstraZeneca vaccine are not cause to doubt its safety. A study in Scotland covering 5.4 million people showed it and the Pfizer vaccine were highly effective in preventing severe infections. Student nurse Anais Mamol Palacio views any reaction as minor and certainly not worse than getting the virus.
I got COVID and I don't want to get it a second time. I'm 18 and I had to go to the emergency room. If I get it a second time, we don't know what can happen. I prefer to have less effects and just have the fever from AstraZeneca vaccine than to be on oxygen.
After initial concerns, France, Germany and Italy have changed tack and are now giving the AstraZeneca vaccine to people over 65. Pope Francis ended his historic tour of Iraq on Monday, flying out of Baghdad International Airport after visiting cities torn apart by conflict, meeting Muslim and Christian leaders, and preaching a message of peace and coexistence over war. Francis waved to crowds one last time as he boarded the plane, which had Vatican and Iraqi flags flying from its cockpit windows. During the trip, the first ever papal visit to the country, he toured 4 cities, including Mosul, the former Islamic State stronghold where vast areas still lie in ruins. It was there he repeated his message again, telling Iraqis that, quote, peace is more powerful than war, and added Iraq would, quote, always remain with me in my heart.
I
stopped in front of the destroyed church and I just didn't have any words. It's something you can't believe. You can't believe it. Now, not only the church, but also other churches and a mosque that were destroyed. You can see they didn't get on with the people of this place. It's just unbelievable, our human cruelty.
Credere la crudeltà umana nostra, no?
Another historical first came when he met Iraq's top Shiite Muslim cleric. Hours after the Pope's departure, the country's Prime Minister, Mustafa al-Kadhimi, made a televised address calling for further dialogue.
On the basis of this historic responsibility, and in the atmosphere of love and tolerance promoted by the visit of His Holiness the Pope to the land of Iraq, the land of Mesopotamia, we present today the call for a national dialogue to be a pathway for achieving the aspirations of our people.
The whirlwind and potentially risky visit appeared to be well received by the public, with officials saying it was a chance for the world to see their perpetually crisis-hit nation in a new light.
64-year-old grandmother Tayyib Demirel is single-handedly taking on the operators of a coal mine in a bid to save her land and village. Behind the lush greenery of Demirel's olive groves in southwest Turkey lies a vast grey expanse. The rolling hillside has been eaten by the nearby mine. On the horizon, heavy smoke billows from the power plant it feeds, the country's largest.
I have been crying at night until dawn. 6 years ago, when I was picking olives, the excavations of these mine companies had not come this close. When the farmers were shaking olive tree branches, I was worried. That was when this struggle began.
Demirel said the area beyond her fields had once been carpeted with wildflowers. Now she calls it a hell pit.
I love green. I'm in love with green. I'm in love with bird songs. I'm in love with the green and the nature that God created. Once my sister was crawling in the fields that are now destroyed. 3 or 4 years before this was demolished, she was posing for photos among tulips, daisies and poppies. This is no more. Which is better, a hell pit, as I call it, or nature? What do you think?
Şu gördüğün şu zeytinlik doğam. Hangisi sence? 5 villages have already disappeared as the mine expanded. Hers could be next.
They say all the land around will be dug and plundered, and your olive grove will be stuck in the middle. I object. I will continue my struggle despite my sickness. I will seek my rights stemming from the laws. How am I supposed to come to my field? Land here from the sky with a helicopter?
Turkish authorities are pushing to more than double coal power capacity as the country tries to wean itself off imports. The Yatagan power plant said its operations respect the environment and are carried out under supervision of relevant ministries. Campaigners say the equivalent of nearly 8,000 soccer fields has been lost to mining in the last 4 decades across the Mughla province. Activists such as Denise Gumsel say coal pollution has led to major health issues, alongside environmental damage. But Gumsal says there's reason to hope, thanks to the resistance of the women like Demirel from nearby villages.
The women villagers, the female villagers of İkizköy Milas are carrying out an incredible fight against this injustice business, coal business. And they were very successful to stop or slow down the progression of the mines, for instance.
Last month, Demirel won a court case leading to a halt of the mine's expansion towards her village. She still fears her 6-acre property is under threat, but won't give up without a fight.
One day, my grandson will ask me, "Grandmother, where's your village? Where were you born?" I was not born in the city. I was born here, married here, and lived here, and I want to live here until the end of my life and die here. Don't take me away from my village.
The great rotation into cyclical stocks drove the Dow to near record levels Monday. But that rotation pulled money out of tech stocks, dragging down the Nasdaq and S&P 500. Investors bet on stocks that stand to benefit the most from an economic rebound, such as blue chips Disney and Goldman Sachs. This comes as a $1.9 trillion COVID-19 relief bill awaits a final congressional vote after the Senate passed it over the weekend. But the prospects of more government spending and faster economic growth are also stoking fears of a spike in inflation. That drove the benchmark 10-year Treasury yield to near one-year highs Monday. Tech stocks are particularly sensitive to rising yields, which sent big names like Apple and Alphabet lower. The Nasdaq closed down nearly 2.5% and the S&P by 0.5%. But the Dow gained 1%. Phoenix Financial Services Chief Market Analyst Wayne Kaufman.
I think that it's good that money is not leaving the market. This has very obviously been sector rotation, money not leaving the market.
Shares of Walt Disney jumped 6%. Disneyland and other theme parks, stadiums, and outdoor entertainment venues could reopen as early as April under new rules set by California health officials. GE shares rose 4%. Its aircraft leasing unit is in talks with Irish rival AerCap over a possible deal that would create an industry titan.
Burger King was grilled on social media Monday after its UK division tweeted this on International Women's Day: "Women belong in the kitchen." The faux pas was followed up with an attempt at an explanation when Burger King UK then tweeted, "Only 20% of chefs are women. We're on a mission to change the gender ratio in the restaurant industry." But the damage was already done. Twitter users fired back, some calling the tweet tone-deaf and pledged not to eat at the burger chain. Others made jokes. One user tweeted, "There's better ways to draw attention to something that don't include using the most sexist trope ever." In a written statement, Burger King said, "Our tweet in the UK today was designed to draw attention to the fact that only a small percentage of chefs and head chefs are women. It was our mistake to not include the full explanation in our initial tweet." New York brand expert Alan Adamson says Burger King tried too hard to be clever.
Challenge of a tweet, it stands on its own. It's not the beginning of a conversation. It's usually the entire conversation. So saying women belong in the kitchen is the punchline and the headline that's now linked to the Burger King brand, and it's not something they wanted linked to the Burger King brand.
Hours later, the fast food chain was still trying to clean up the mess, tweeting, "We hear you. We got our initial tweet wrong, and we're sorry."
And this was our last report. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.